Good morning. Life Today presents to you Deuteronomy chapter 5, which is basically a reminder of the 10 commandments. So Moses, as he continues to narrate, he gives them. Remember, when we introduced the book of Deuteronomy, we said that this book is like a review of the commands or the instructions that the Lord gave the children of Israel. Why was this necessary? Because Moses at this point has a totally new generation. It's a new generation. And even though there are things that were passed on to them by the generation that had passed, Moses takes advantage of his final days and he narrates, he passes on the same instructions, even through narrating how they have experienced the Lord in the journey. And now gets to a point where he tells them how God called him, invited him to, at the top of the mountain, and he gave him specific instructions for them to follow. Now, when you look at this, let me mention two things about the 10 commandments. I will not read much today. When you look at the 10 commandments, two things I'd like to point out to you. And the first thing is something that I've learned from my discipler, Pastor Maish, that I've come to appreciate. See the commandments in form of a triangle or a mountain. Now, why am I saying this? It's because the commandments are a picture of how God invites us to relate with Him and others. And this is summed up in a few Psalms as the journey up the mountain. The journey up the mountain is basically the journey of communion with God. That's why a psalmist a few times asks or talks about coming up the holy mountain of God. Why? Because that is the provision God has made for us to come to, but then also stay in communion with the Father. It's a mountain. It's a triangle. Okay? It's a journey to this mountain that has been lifted above every other hills. And there is nothing that can come and overpower that. Now that takes you back to what we looked at yesterday. Okay? Idolatry. Nothing should remove God at the top of this mountain. And that's why it is the only mountain that is high above every other hill. Now, the hills, one, are lower than the mountain. Secondly, they also have their own gods in those places. That's why we should not be coming up the hills. Even though God gives us provision to climb these different hills. And that's a whole teaching I will do. These hills, so you can come up the hills through the power of God, because His mountain is above all this other. Because those hills are part of His creation, part of His idea. Now we have the hills of governance or leadership. We have the hills of philosophy or academics or books or knowledge. We have the hills of business. We have the hills of family. Now people tend to be climbing these hills and making a name for themselves, just like those guys who built the Tower of Babel. People tend to be climbing these hills and worshipping the gods of these hills, when the mountain, the thing we should be climbing, is the mountain of the Lord. And then He helps us, He journeys us through these other hills, even to the top of His mountain. I hope that makes sense. But like I said, that's a whole teaching that I could do with you if the Lord provides an opportunity. So don't think so much about that, but see the 10 commandments as a hill, as a mountain, not a hill, as a mountain, as a triangle. Now the 10 commandments are divided into two. This mountain is divided basically into two. The first 4, let me just read them. I am the Lord your God, who rescued you from the land of Egypt, the place of your slavery. You must not have any other God but me. That's one. You must not make for yourself an idol of any kind. That's two. Because God is a jealous God. You must not misuse the name of God, of the Lord your God. Observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Those first 4 commandments form the first half of the mountain. Why? Because these commandments are focusing on our relationship with the God whose throne is at the top of this holy mountain. They are about God and us. God and us. The remaining 6 are about our relationships with other people. Relationship with God and then relationship with other people. Now, that's why Jesus, in a conversation with that is it the young ruler, the rich young ruler, he tells him that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with your all, so to speak. And then the second one is just like it. It's tied to the first one, to the other one. So it is one commandment, so to speak. 10 of them are summarized into one. First part, you and God. Second part, you and your fellow human beings. Okay? So the purpose of these 10 commandments are basically to draw us to a place of a refreshing and fulfilling walk, relationship, communion with God, and then we experience the same with people around us. That's the second thing that I wanted to say. Okay? So see it as a mountain divided into 2. Okay? But then also it is so that these were given so that our relationship with God will be healthy, and that now translates into our relationship with people. That's it about the commandments. So when you're thinking about the commandments, don't crack your head about, oh, have I obeyed these? Have I not obeyed this? No, just ask yourself, how is my walk with the Lord? And how is that affecting my relationships? Period. How is my walk with the Lord? And how is that affecting my relationship with people? Because I can tell you for sure, the times my walk with the Lord has had a glitch, oh, my relationships are terrible. Including me fearing to reach out to people who are of key relationships to me. I don't have the confidence and the boldness to reach out to them. But when my relationship, my walk with the Lord is okay, I have the courage and enthusiasm to reach out to them, to service those relationships. That's just how it is, in a simple explanation. And we don't need to complicate these things. Run after God, and then He'll help you in your relationships with others. Amen.